Hi guys. Um, so I was doing some thinking. I was going back on my videos, my previous videos, and I need the lighting. I'm sorry I got all this like stuff in the background. I don't have a nice background. You can see the clock there. What time is it? It's 5 minutes after 12 midnight. So Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. So I was looking at some videos that I had posted previously, and I don't know if you're watching this, I posted a video. I think it's titled Hank Green, Vidcon Coward or something like that. Hank Green, Coward. Hank Green, and then his brother John. John's an author. He's written a number of popular books. Hank might be an author as well. I think he is. They promote them, or Hank promotes himself as being like a nerd. I guess that's supposed to imply that he's smart, but I don't really see it. What I'm trying to get at here is, in that video, I talk about a man named Mike Lombardo, who was associated with Hank and his brother. And Mike is a musician, and he was put in prison and charged with had like child pornography charges. He was exchanging sexual images, explicit images with females over the internet. I think there was something like around 50 females that were sending him explicit images of themselves. And these women or girls, females, were under the age of 18, some of them. And so that's where the child pornography charges come from. And then I talk about the agent, FBI agent Alex Skelton, who used to work for the Albany division in New York. She used to live up in New York. And then she was also involved in dressage, which are horses. But that's not important. She lives in Virginia now and works out of the Washington, D.C. office. So Alex, it just shows you how totally incompetent the FBI is, and what a corrupt organization it is. I mentioned in another video that how the FBI special agent in charge in Las Vegas is withholding information that mass murderer Stephen Paddock was actually shot and killed by Brian Hodges. Brian shot Stephen in the mouth in a hotel room in the Mandalay Bay casino hotel, and then FBI Director Christopher Wray is lying about the 14 pipe bombs that were mailed out through the Democrats, because all those bombs are non-explosive. And then, like, the FBI goes and fabricates reports of terrorism in cases in order to boost their budget so they can get more money. It's interesting to note that the FBI was actually founded by a pedophile. J. Edgar Hoover was a pedophile, and he would often receive as gifts from the mafia children. So that's where the FBI got, that's quite a legacy if you're an agent with the FBI. So this woman, Alex Skelton, a special agent that busted Mike Lombardo for exchanging images with teenage fans that the girls wanted him to see what their bodies looked like, and they sent him naked pictures of themselves, and they were under the age of 18. I just posted recently that Ted Turner, he's a billionaire. Hey Alex, are you watching this, Alex? Why don't you go and talk to Ted Turner? Because he raped Fiona Barnett. Fiona lives down in Australia, and Ted Turner's a pedophile. Ted Turner is one of the members of the Giving Pledge, which was started by Bill Gates, one of the founders of Microsoft, and the co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is headquartered in Seattle. And Warren Buffett, the chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. Warren and Bill started the Giving Pledge, and Ted is one of the people that signed on to that. And Ted's a pedophile and raped Fiona Barnett when she was just a child. So Alex, why don't you go and talk to Ted? That's a big fish right there, isn't it? I mean, what you did to Mike is small potatoes, as President Trump would say. But you know, you'll never get Ted, Alex. They won't let you near him. I'd be surprised if you could get anywhere near Ted Turner, Alex. But it's so corrupt. I was listening to Fiona, and you know, I learned about how Reverend Billy Graham raped her, and that Reverend Billy Graham told Fiona that President Richard Nixon had recommended her to him. She was raped by President Nixon as well when she was a child. Yeah, it just goes to show you. I mean, like agents like Alex Skelton. I mean, you're like an insect. You're like a small little gnat that really doesn't do anything other than, you know, irritate people. You don't really affect any big change. I mean, you and then you know, I had another pest with the FBI, Kimberly Mertz. She goes by the name Kimberly Shea. Her husband, Jim Shea, or James Shea. Kimberly is in charge of security for Brookfield Property Partners in Manhattan, and it's a real estate company. And she works at 200 Vesey Street in Manhattan. I think it's a 56-story apartment building. Several weeks back, I contacted the bureau chief in charge of counterterrorism for NYPD, James Waters, and I spoke with his detective, and I told him, you know, what Kimberly had done when she was the agent in charge of the New Haven office, because back in 2013, the New Haven FBI contacted the Portland, Oregon police and requested that I be arrested. And this information is in my FBI file. I have it uploaded to the internet. I'll include a link in the description to my FBI file. I'm not sure what page it's on. I think just as kind of a different subject, I think on page 39 there's information about how the FBI, because I had relayed information to someone, I can't remember who it was, that it was the FBI and ATF that blew up the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma back in April 19th, 1995. They used micronuclear devices, micronuclear bombs about the size of a softball, and they killed 168 innocent people, and that's never been publicly, you know, not officially, I mean, like, you know, through the government or anything like that. There's a man named Dr. Bill Deagle who talks about it, and he has a good video up. There's a man, Corey Snodgrass, I think. I'm not quite sure on the name. If you look up Dr. Bill Deagle, the most recent YouTube video interview he did, there's a man that wrote a book about what happened in Oklahoma in 1995. So how did I get talking about that? I don't remember how I started talking about that. There's just a lot of corruption with the FBI. It's a totally corrupt organization, and like I said, it was founded by J. Edgar Hoover, who was a pedophile and would take children as gifts from the mafia. So I was talking about Fiona and how she'd been raped by Ted Turner, Reverend Billy Graham, and President Nixon. There's a woman named Sarah Ruth Ashcraft. I learned that she was raped by actor Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is actually filming a movie about Fred Rogers, who used to have a television show. It was a show that was on PBS, Public Broadcasting Service, for I think it was like 40 years. It was on PBS. Mr. Rogers and Tom Hanks, he's a pedophile, and he's playing Mr. Rogers. I think it's a Sony Pictures production. Excuse me. I have to keep clearing my throat. Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting that the Squirrel Hill neighborhood of Pittsburgh is where it was reported that there was a shooting in a synagogue called the Tree of Life back in October 27th, and there was nobody killed there. And I talk about this in another video. The New York Times writer Barry Weiss, who grew up in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood of Pittsburgh, went on HBO on a show with Bill Maher, and it admitted that her father knew 5 of the victims, which is a total lie. And I talk about how she got me blocked on Twitter for 17 days, and I had to contact her rabbi and all this stuff, and get my Twitter account unblocked. And I tried posting a comment to the New York Times. I've stopped reading the New York Times. I unsubscribed because it's just so much false information. I got tired of reading it. The New York Times, I left a comment. It was an article about Twitter, and I wrote how I had written a letter to Jack Dorsey and told him, please stop blocking me from Twitter, because every time you block me, I report you to the Department of Justice. And then how I contacted Bari's rabbi, because she was the one that got me blocked. She said I posted hate speech. And in the meantime, she goes and lies about, people being shot at the synagogue. And so the rabbi got me unblocked after I left a message, and he did that by talking to Bari, who then contacted Jack, because that's what I told him to do. And Jack gave an order to his workers at Twitter, and they unblocked me. And I had donated some money to the rabbi. It's actually a synagogue called Romu in Manhattan, and Rabbi David Engber I had donated money to him. I gave $100. I don't have very much, so I live on Social Security disability. And then he refunded the money the next day. And I had told him that no one was killed at the synagogue, and told him a bunch of other things that were fake, like the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting, and Boston bombing, and Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. All those were fake. It's funny, I sent an email to Michael Chertoff and his wife, Meryl, I think her name is. Yeah, I think it is Meryl. She works for the Aspen Institute. Aspen Institute was opened by, funded by the Crown family, the Jewish family from Chicago, I believe. A friend of mine referred to them as the Jewish Mafia. But anyways, I emailed Michael and his wife at the same time, along with all the FCC commissioners, because I included them all. I wanted them to, if they looked, to see that who the other people were that were getting the emails. And I told them that no one was killed at the synagogue. But before I mentioned that, I wrote that I was going to show it to you, but I don't have a way of showing it to you because it's actually a document that's contained on my phone. But I had written to Sumner Redstone many times, emailed, faxed, called, and Sumner owns CBS Corporations through the parent company National Amusements. And I told him, what was it I told him? Oh, Newtown. That Newtown, Connecticut, no one died on December 14th, 2012. The Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting was fake. And Sumner would not have CBS report this information. And Sumner's Jewish. And then I contacted another man who's Jewish. His name was S.I. Newhouse. He passed away, and his son Stephen Newhouse now controls the company. And I told them many times no one was killed in Newtown. They ignored what I had to say. Then I contacted another Jewish person, Senator Dianne Feinstein. I wasted 6 years of my life trying to contact her office, or I did contact her office many times, but they never did anything with the information I gave to them. They really don't care. That's what it is. They don't care. And so I mentioned this to Michael Chertoff and his wife and the FCC commissioners, and Michael Chertoff is Jewish. And I told them, look, this is the people I contacted many times. They're all Jewish. And then you have a shooting at a synagogue. Well, I have quite a few number of friends that work for or used to work for intelligence agencies such as the FBI, CIA, and NSA. I noticed that after I had given some information to Brad Johnson, who's a former CIA station chief and owns the Americans for Intelligence Reform. You can look him up. I had donated some money to Brad, and after I provided some information to him, like the next day or a couple of days later, 14 pipe bombs were mailed out to the Democrats. And I thought that was kind of a coincidence. And then you had the situation with all the Jewish people such as Feinstein, Redstone, and Newhouse that didn't do anything. And then you have a shooting or a fake shooting at a synagogue in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood of Pittsburgh, which is where Mr. Fred Rogers used to live. And then you got Tom Hanks, who's a pedophile, who's now playing Fred Rogers. I don't know, somehow this stuff all ties into it to each other. I'm not totally sure how. I mean, there's just a lot of, fake terrorism, but very real pedophilia. Started off talking about Mike Lombardo, who, was only exchanging images, was in receipt of images of naked girls under the age of 18. And he was a musician, so... and I talked about Ted Turner, who was a billionaire, and mentioned that Special Agent Alex Skelton would never be able to do anything about Ted Turner and his pedophilia proclivities. I don't have anything else to talk about. It's going to take a while to upload this. Bye.